rest assured, we are working very hard to make sure today goes off without any issues whatsoever. We're going to have a great, great time. Also, keep in mind, everything is on demand. So if the child is hungry, if you need to walk the dog, remember, yesterday, today, and tomorrow will all be on demand at Inman.com. So rest assured you won't miss anything. I won't chat too much longer. We'll get right into it. We'll be back right after this with Pete Flint. See, I told you that would be fast. Welcome, Pete. Welcome to the virtual stage.
Hi, Katie. Great to be here. I've been going to Inman since, 2004, and this is the definitely the most different Inman event. It's a shame not to get everyone together, but anyway, very nice to be here.
I know it's we prepped a little bit beforehand, and you're at your home, I'm at mine, and it's definitely different, but it's nice to get to have some insight into everyone's home lives. I guess I know you're hiding from your children. Is that correct?
I am hiding in a, a 4-year-old might just stomp in any minute, but we're used to that these days, and so the joy of these events is we get to see the real you and the real home, and that makes it quite special.
Yeah. Things are changing rapidly, and that's why we have you here. We want to get your insight, your expertise, your genius per se. Let's talk about the transaction of the future, because it's not the future anymore. It's here right now. So talk to me about what you see on the other side of this and what it's going to do to the real estate transaction.
Well, maybe I've been talking for some time about how, I kind of look at online real estate from the notion that back in 2005 to 2015 was really the information revolution. Consumers were empowered with information, amazing tools like Trulia and Zillow and Redfin and others just enable consumers access to the information. And that helped consumers. And I think it also helped agents as well in a meaningful way, giving them more advertising options and qualified consumers. Since 2015, the next wave is really the transaction revolution. And probably, I would say, Open Door kind of like was ringing the bell at the starting line for that revolution. A whole bunch of other companies have kind of are solving that problem in different ways. So the next wave is absolutely the transaction revolution. And we think that, I think that will have its own impact in various different ways. And I do think that will fundamentally help consumers in providing a confident and convenient close. I think it will also help many participants within the industry, but it will result in significant disruption. No doubt about it. And there will be absolutely winners and losers in that transaction.
And who do you consider those winners and losers? We could elaborate on that.
So I think that if you think about, first of all, this is not just happening in real estate. You think of every transaction. If you think of what's happening in legal, what's happening in finance, what's happening in groceries, what's happening in retail, every industry is going from this offline shift to this online shift. And there will be winners and losers. So fundamentally, I think the winners will be consumers. I think the winners will be agents. I think they will benefit from this because agents are, as we know, they provide a valuable role in the ecosystem. And I think their role in these infrequent high anxiety transactions will not disappear. But there will be industry participants, and you go down, you break down the real estate transaction, you see a lot of participants in there, which frankly, I think haven't and don't add significant value to the transaction. And many of them are kind of largely commodity services. So things like title companies, these legacy businesses that I think are going to be challenged. I think there's mortgage companies that are commodity businesses that I think are going to be disrupted. I think there are some big box brokers that are taking agents' commission and providing limited value to those, there are companies that are, I would say, they are kind of like asset heavy and legacy companies that are kind of weighed down all by these costs that don't have deep software expertise, which I think are also going to struggle in this transition. And as we've seen in so many industries, whether that's kind of e-commerce or groceries, you've seen how this the 5-year revolution has happened in literally a case of 3 months, and it's been dramatic, and it's absolutely going to happen in online real estate as well.
It's funny, when you grow up, you think that people older than you are always right, and they know how to do it right, and that's just how it's done. And the older that I've gotten, I always question everything. Like, that is just nonsense. Like, we don't need that, or just it's more convoluted. And I'm happy to see that we're finally in a time where we have been forced to question absolutely everything. And there is just such nonsense in some of these transactions. Brad talks about it a lot. The two of you talked about it on your podcast, which is great, by the way, if you haven't listened to it. Everyone that's listening, it was back in April. But it's just like a notary. Like, really? Like, do we have to travel or find a notary during a pandemic to get a deal done? It's nonsense. So talk to me, like, the shifts in the economy. Do you think people are going to start to become more frugal, and how is that going to impact transactions in general? Not just real estate, just business.
Yeah, well, I think just to your point earlier, like the sort of older people, I actually look the other way. I look for younger people. I look like, what are the 20-year-olds doing? What are the 30-year-olds doing? Like, how are they conducting their life and their business? And I think, there's a sort of habit you get into, like, wise old people. It's like, no, like, what is the youth generation doing? And they're doing everything from their cell phone. They're doing everything digitally. They're doing everything asynchronously. They don't want to talk to someone. They want to do things and they want it simple, or they want it fast, and they want it convenient. And, of course, human interaction is good. But for many transactions, human interaction is it's unnecessary. Like, why do I need to kind of sit down with a human being to kind of perform that transaction? So I do absolutely kind of look at where how the youth are performing transactions, and that will absolutely be where the future is going in terms of how traditional transactions are going. In terms of like saving money, we have a sort of theory around kind of how startup timing is everything, and really it comes down to 3 catalysts. One is like, what are the enabling technologies that enable change to happen? So we've seen it now, kind of like Zoom in and sort of video conferencing is pervasive. There's sort of high security transactions going on. The technology is kind of there. Everyone's plugged in 24/7, and mobile technology is pervasive. The second is really cultural acceptance. Like, is not meeting someone in person like culturally acceptable? Absolutely, it's culturally acceptable today. So what is the cultural acceptance about things? And 3, what is the economic imperative? What is the economic catalyst? And for sure, people will have less money this year, and probably next year. And so people are looking to save money. I actually don't think the real estate transaction is going to get cheaper. There are sort of structural reasons why the sort of commission rates and so forth are kind of where they are, and I actually don't see that changing kind of meaningfully for the foreseeable future. But I do absolutely think the service quality is going to go up. And the service quality, whether that's great agents are going to replace mediocre agents, whether that's convenient transactions are going to replace sort of slow and cumbersome transactions, where the reams of paper, which we've been seeing for a while, are going to come down to just a few simple clicks and authorization. That's going to happen. So it's more going to be a revolution of convenience and simplicity and integration than it is going to be sort of a revolution of pricing and cost.
Tell me, I think that you are a supporter of believing that companies, entrepreneurs, startups can thrive in times like this, uncertain times. Can we dive into that a little bit, since that's what you do? Tell us, if someone right now is thinking, I want to make something big, I think now is the time. Is now the time? And what are the characteristics of a thriving company in something like this?
Yeah, so I guess it comes from a little bit of my own experience in terms of founding and building Trulia in 2008, 2009. And, that was a challenging time for everyone in the industry. And, I would say for pretty much everyone I speak to, those that got through that came out incredibly strong and in a really great position. So I guess there's sort of a couple of thoughts about how to kind of navigate a downturn. And first, to be clear, it's not clear that real estate is facing a downturn right now. Like, I think looking at sort of some of the data, and there's many people in this audience and an event that have way more data than I do, but it's not clear that kind of real estate is going to be challenged. So I guess the sort of first thing is to lean into the opportunity. The world has changed, accept change. And so the old playbook is no longer the current playbook. So the worst thing you can be is sort of a deer in headlights that you're almost incapable of executing. Lean in, change your product or service. What do the consumers want today? How do I offer that service? Make that visible, make that apparent, promote that, ultimately to be in a position to take market share. Companies that come out of this and take market share are going to be the ones that do very, very well. It's the second point is to really think about what is the, am I providing a nice to have versus a must have? And what we see in this time is that the sort of luxury goods are just sort of frankly irrelevant. And in Silicon Valley, we have this notion of product market fit, where your product, the service you define, is truly accepted by the market. And Silicon Valley, people talk all about this product market fit. And product market fit is very obvious at this time. You either have it or you don't. And so tuning your product to really meet the needs of the market today is critical. So making sure that you truly have this sort of so-called product market fit, and adjusting your product to do that. I guess the kind of third thing is really just to think about how do you scale the business, and how do you take market share, and how do you really lean into this opportunity?
It's interesting. I still see a lot of agents just digging in and thinking it's going to get back to normal. So it's nice to hear it from you, and hopefully the audience is listening that we don't even know what normal is anymore. But forward thinking and paying attention to those who are kind of, they've come out of the box, and I see just so many younger agents. I'm not young anymore. Well, I'm kind of young, but they're just, man, they're doing it right, and they're having fun doing it right, and they're charismatic, and you're just drawn to them, and they haven't stepped foot in a house in God knows how long, but everything's, virtual, and they love it. We have a question from the audience. Renee Funk asks Pete, what virtual process or tool being utilized in the sales process now do you think will remain a standard in the industry moving forward?
Well, I think that I'm not as close to the data anymore, but I looked almost obsessively at the number of transactions that consumers, and you could get this data, the number of transactions that were done without the consumer actually entering the home, and the number of homes that consumers saw before they actually bought that home. And you've seen this kind of dwindling kind of number in terms of people are, consumers generally looking at less houses, and the number of transactions that were being consummated without going in the home was increasing over time. So I actually think the notion of virtual home tours and virtual open houses is going to become a mainstay. Just the convenience factor. I mean, it doesn't mean that kind of people are going to buy a home sight unseen, but I think these virtual home tours are going to be absolutely a mainstay. Combined with that would be one. Another one would just be this sort of the digital close. This is going to be simple. It's going to be efficient, and that's gone from a sort of like, oh, that's interesting, to being a necessity. If you can home from your cell phone, from your home, that will become a necessity.
It was interesting. I was talking to one of our clients here in Houston the other day, and they were closing and moving to Atlanta. and they were like, well, we'll just close on the way. Like they didn't even think that wasn't an option. Like, can't we just do it from the car? We're moving our whole family, across the country. What are you talking about? And I was like, well, it's impossible, which is just so silly as it was coming out of my mouth. I was like, why is it impossible? God. And people are saying, oh, virtual tours, they're kind of clunky right now, and virtual showings. Well, it's clunky because we just started like really pushing them out 60 days ago. So imagine how amazing and beautiful they'll be, and what an important part of the transaction in just another couple of weeks or so. So talk to me right now. And I know we already, go ahead. Whatever you said is much more interesting, I'm sure.
Well, I guess the sort of on the virtual piece, the other component is that the cell phone technology is getting better and better and better, and I think the next several years with augmented reality, the cameras are getting better. With virtual reality, the experiences are going to be remarkable, and I think I sort of look at the virtual meetings that we have right now are very sort of flat, two-dimensional. And you can imagine a world in just a few years where this is going to be more immersive, more three-dimensional, really more kind of giving you the sense of the feel from the home. You've gone from, over the last 20 years, you've gone from kind of raw data, static images, to starting to see kind of virtual tools, and that will become kind of more immersive experiences over time.
Absolutely. Have another question. This is an easy one. Roz Cruz here in Houston at har.com, good friend of mine. Surveys show more than 60% plan to work at home post-COVID. How do you see that impacting traditional bricks and mortar broker offices?
Well, I think really for all businesses, we've gone from this asset, and I think certainly in kind of prop tech generally, we've gone from this sort of asset heavy industry to kind of to asset light. So I sort of in both in big box kind of in brokerage industry, bricks and mortar industry, to also technology companies that they've gone from asset heavy to asset light. So think of WeWork, think of Open Door, literally billions of dollars in those businesses going through to asset light companies. So the next wave of companies are going to be more asset light type businesses, and I think they're going to have structural cost advantages, which are going to be beneficial to them. And I think that's going to come down. Those sort of cost advantages are going to be transferred to agents. So agents are going to get a better deal. And while I don't necessarily I'm sure not everyone loves working from their home. It sure is nice to work from home now and again. And many of us now, we've got a setup, so actually just as productive, not more productive than before. So I think it's going to be a permanent change, both in the way that brokerages are run, but also how we live our lives. The kind of the emergence of the suburb is going to be huge. San Francisco, where I live, is ghost town right now. People have got out, rents are down, prices are down, and there's going to be a growth of the suburbs, which I think is going to be, frankly, a boon for many of the people in the real estate industry.
Yeah, it's awfully nice to know that you can take an hour drive from where your office was and basically get a house for free compared to what you're used to paying if you're in the center of the city. So that will definitely change things for sure. Talk to me as we work on wrapping up, and we touched on this a little bit, but I would love for those who are watching you right now, what advice do you have to share with them, just in general as an entrepreneur?
Well, one thing, I mentioned this earlier, is like think about what the youth of today are doing. What are the 20-year-olds are doing, and almost put yourself 3 years forward and say, what is the world going to look like in 3 years' time, and do that now. And it may take you time to think about kind of to get there, but try to think about what the world is going to look like in 3 years, and do that today. And that is going to be digital. That's going to be simple. That's going to be integrated. And I think this is, like in every time of crisis, there is an opportunity across the board. And obviously we have multiple crises today, but that's the opportunity. So leaning into it to how can you make the your business kind of fit the market today and capture the opportunity in front of you.
And you feel confident the real estate agent will continue to be the center of the transaction, I hope?
I think yes, but there is a but. I think many participants in the real estate industry, if they are sort of so-called commodity type products, where if you're a commodity financial service, or you're just passing information, or if you are providing sort of let's just say selling transactions without providing a lot of value, you're fundamentally providing a commodity service, and computers are really good at replacing kind of commodity services. So, this is an opportunity for agents. They need to move up to higher transactions. And I think there is going to be this battle over the next few years, which is like the direct-to-consumer brands that are focused on, enabling agents, but for the most part, kind of taking over the entire transactions. That will happen. And I think competition is a great thing. On the flip side, I think the majority of transactions will be performed by agents. We enable with the technology to help them to provide a simple, integrated digital close. But for the mainstay, I absolutely see agents being at the center of the transaction, for sure, for the foreseeable future.
And I'm not going to ask any more questions because that is the perfect way to go out. Pete, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here. I know it's somewhat early where you are. Just thank you very much. The insight was very welcome right now.
My pleasure. Great to be on. Great to see everyone. Take care.
Thanks, Pete. All right, everybody. We have another special treat for you. It's my boss. Robert Reffkin right now is going to be joining Brad Inman talking about leading in chaos, and I will throw it over to them. Gentlemen.
Greetings, everybody. It's great to be back. Here we are Wednesday morning in the second day of this great experiment. I just want to share something with you. 30 years ago this month, I did my first event. It was a physical event. It was for consumers with the San Francisco Examiner, where I'm sitting right now. I took a long walk this morning from the Haight-Ashbury through to where we had that first event. And it reminded me that I've done physical events every year for 30 years, and this will be the first year we may not have one. And I, like you, am sentimental about that. But I also remember when we threw that event together, it took us about 3 months, and suddenly we had 10,000 people lined up around blocks to learn about how to buy and sell a house, because they didn't have the internet back then. And I want to thank our team, thank our ambassadors, thank our sponsors, and thank all of you for taking a chance on a new product. Josh Albertson, our CEO, came up with this idea with the team about doing a virtual event just about 2.5 months ago. And it's a new product, and we've made some mistakes, and we've had some glitches staring into cameras with no audio with Rich Barton. But I am so impressed by all the people that came together, and most importantly, you, our customers, who took a chance on this. And I think virtual events have legs. I think virtual events will continue. But I also have a warm, warm heart. You know, most of my career, I've done physical events. I guess that's what we call them now. And we're going to do more of them. Also, I want to thank all the international people that are attending and listening to us Americans rant and rave about all kinds of stuff. And thank you. And the beauty of virtual events is we can go around the world now. And so you're going to be hearing a lot more from Inman about virtual events, and we're going to update you on the physical events as well. But thank you all from the bottom of my heart for being here. Now I'm super excited to have with us this morning Robert Refkin, truly a leader in the industry, the CEO and co-founder of Compass, a company that about 7 years ago stormed into the real estate industry and really, really made a difference. And you know, one sign of someone that makes a difference is if they're controversial. And Robert has been controversial, which I love about him. Every entrepreneur, every startup, every company that tries to make a difference is controversial. And even this morning, I got an email saying, ask Compass if they're going to survive. And I wanted to say, well, shouldn't I ask that of all the companies in this time that we're all facing? So we'll ask Robert that and many more questions. Hey, Robert, are you there? I'd like to welcome you to the Inman stage here. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's good to see you, Brad. Thanks for inviting us.
I love the pictures. That's you at your wedding?
Yeah, that's me at my wedding. I was probably 30 pounds lighter and 8 years younger.
Oh, those are great shots. Hey, Robert, how are you doing?
Look, thanks for asking. It's been a challenging week for our country, and I thought maybe I could share some thoughts on that. Actually, this has been the hardest time on a human level that I can imagine from our recent history as a country. And I think it's okay to not be okay in this time. I think us as agents, we are always trying to put on a good face and make it feel like things are great. I think it's okay to not be okay. And on one hand, we have a crisis which really surprised us, and that was a crisis that was a global pandemic, left this country with 100,000 less jobs, 100,000 less lives, and 30 million jobs lost, and it prevented us from having our basic freedom of moving around for 2+ months. On the other hand, we had a crisis that had been building up in the country for since the founding of this country, which is police brutality against the Black community. And with the murder of George Floyd, I think this country is just saying enough is enough, right? There have been similar murders in the past where people have come up and advocated for change, and it just hasn't happened. And so in this current environment, I think it's important to highlight a couple things. One is the peaceful protesters are a different community than the violent looters and rioters. Those are two completely different communities, and we should address them as such. The peaceful protesters are mountains larger, despite what the media is showing in terms of images. Secondly, the police community is not one monolithic group that all thinks the same. Yeah, they reflect great police and police that have led to murders. And so I think we should recognize that things do need to be addressed, but there are good police as well. And then lastly, I'm incredibly optimistic about the future. We as an industry, we have 2 million people. Our company has 20,000 people. We can make a difference. And we just highly recommend that everybody do 3 things. 1, advocate for racial tolerance with your family, with your friends, with your community. 2, volunteer and donate to nonprofits that are advocating for racial tolerance and an elimination of police brutality. Organizations like the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. And then 3, vote, not just at the federal level, but at the local and state level as well. That's where change really happens. And so I'm very optimistic. Thank you for letting me share those thoughts. And thank you.
That was a great opening, Robert. And later I want to ask you, I know you've had personal experience as a Black man in America that I, as a white man, haven't had. And I think we want to hear about that, just because I think we need to reinforce what this country is still suffering from under that some people don't get. But before we do that, how is Compass doing? I in my intro mentioned this, I get this email like I get frequently, how's Compass? Are they going to survive? And I turned it back to them and said, are you going to survive? Is anyone going to survive in this economy? But just tell us, how is Compass doing? Forget the conspiracy theorists. I assume like any business, you're scrambling. I know we are. Everybody is that I know, unless you maybe, you own Zoom. But how is Compass doing? Just lay it out for our audience here.
Yeah, so look, we're doing very well. Our revenue is up 47% year to date over the prior year. We hired more agents in March than January and February combined. I believe we're seeing a shift in all industries towards digital and virtual solutions, gyms to Peloton, movie theaters to Netflix, retail stores to Amazon. And from a company perspective, I think agents are seeing the benefits of virtual solutions more than they have in the past. We're fortunate we've invested hundreds of millions of dollars into a technology platform to do such that. And I think agents' clients are asking more than ever before, how can you sell my home virtually? How can you market it virtually? How can you show it virtually? How can you get thousands of people to see my home without having to actually put their feet in my home? And we have answers to those questions with the Virtual Agent Service Suite. So yeah, I feel very thankful as a company. We have a history of adapting. We've launched over 130 markets. Every market's different, as you can imagine. So adapting is very normal to us. And we launched Compass Academy to help our agents grow and learn during this time. I've joined over 200 virtual office meetings, providing emotional support and practical business support to our agents during this period of time. And so, yeah, Compass is doing very well.
Well, I'm happy to hear that, because you have, your market share is pretty extraordinary, and I think you're held to a different standard because you're a newbie. You're new to the industry. You're 7 years, so it's not exactly new, but I think even to this day, Redfin's held to a different standard because it's 10 years. We don't ask these same questions of Realogy and Berkshire Hathaway, but I think because you're new, that's what goes on here. Let me ask you that, what has been the hardest part of the last few months, maybe pre the last week, being a leader of a real estate company, or for that matter, any company right now?
Yeah. Look, for me, it's finding the best way to support our agents. Obviously, agents are our only customers. I work for them. They don't work for me. And the diversity of the agent makes it very hard to give them all what they need. And what I mean by that is some people are saying, give me tools so I can succeed in this time, so I can serve my clients in this time. Some are saying, give me tools so I can learn because I can't show in this time. Then others are saying, why are you giving me tools to learn and to grow? Things are so stressed out. You should be just helping us on an emotional level, right? So it's actually impossible to give everyone what they need, because again, agents reflect the diversity of so many different types of personalities. And so I've really leaned into being visible, being active, over communicating to our agents. Again, I've joined over 200 virtual office meetings, and I was doing the videos every day on Instagram and emails 3 times a week. But I got so much feedback that it was getting to be too much that I brought it down. Now I'm only going to do once a week. But that's kind of the example. People liked it, but then some people felt it was overwhelming. And so it's just, how do you find the right balance to give this wonderfully entrepreneurial, diverse community what they need to be successful, both emotionally as a human being, but also professionally during this period of time.
Let's move on to another area. You and I, in preparation for this, talked about suddenly data has become never more important, and I think the backdrop of that is listening sometimes to our politicians, the news media, broadcast news. In fact, I hadn't watched it for a year until I got here, and they had broadcast news on the television, so I turned it on. Got a big, big headache watching it. But data now, I think, is fundamentally more important. We want to know the facts, and if we can't get the people interpreting the facts for us and believe them, we want data. We want data on the virus. We want data on the death rate. We want data on what's going on in the market. Do I have it right that data has suddenly become more important to all of us as citizens, as consumers, as people, because it's something you can rely on? And why in real estate do you think suddenly it has so much importance?
Yeah, look, I think that it's important to differentiate. There are two major types of data: data around an agent's client base, let's say a CRM, and data around listings. I think the more important data is a data around an agent's client base. My mom, as you know, is an agent, and I asked her, in the past, why do some people not use the tools? And she mentioned that some people are scared about the privacy of their data. And she suggested that we should create a data pledge that I sign and every agent can sign, which I send out to the entire company, which says that their data is their data and that we will never contact their clients without their permission. And even if they leave Compass, that they can bring their email and all their contact database. And so I think that data is very important. And there's a lot of fear that certain brokerage firms create around data. Yeah, and so I think there's just fear about it just in general. And I think there are certain brokerages that actually do keep people's client database and then contact them after they leave, which is horrific. I think it's really important to have a CRM. 100% of agents know they need a CRM, but less than 20% of them actually use one in any meaningful way. And that's why we've invested, over this point, over $50 million in building a CRM from scratch.
We had a question before this. Someone fired one over on Facebook. Contractually, is that still part of the mix on your CRM?
Yeah, so we acquired the company contractually. The way that they are a CRM. The way that we identify them is the way that we do everything at Compass. We ask agents, what do they want? Who do they like? And they voted that the CRM that they liked the best was contractually. So then we talked with contractually and we acquired them. They still have a contractually CRM that's anyone outside of Compass can use. There's a third-party CRM that people have used and they can continue to use it if they've already had in the past. And that team has built, along with our own engineers, our previous engineers, they have built a Compass CRM, which is different than the contractually CRM. And one of the key differences is it connects to the rest of the Compass platform. It connects to our marketing center, digital newsletters, social media. It connects to our search. It connects to our mobile. So everything being in one place is very important for us. We believe that one of the key innovations is integration. And that integration will always save agents more time and give them a better quality of life than having to patch together all these different third-party platforms, remember the passwords, and try to get them all at the same time.
Gotcha. Let's do a quick multiple choice here. And a quick one here, because I got a couple more questions before we run out of time, Robert. I wish I had an hour with you. But multiple choice, which of these technologies right now do you think are the most important? Is it productivity tools? Is it the digital consumer experience? Is it leads, or is it some sort of digital concierge service? How would you rank those? What do you think in the agent world right now is most important?
100% productivity. Agents... Yeah, I'll say it, productivity.
Okay, and I can't get you off the stage without asking this, but I know you're fully capable of answering it. Inman News had a story recently about SoftBank's earnings, and our headline I know upset some of the Compass people. I don't think the story said anything, but it inferred, or might have not inferred, but suggested that maybe SoftBank problems were bleeding into Compass. But we got a bunch of questions here. SoftBank, anything that we should know? Put it in perspective for the Inman readers, so maybe we can put it to bed and people will stop sending me these emails, both on the Compass side and the other side, because we get complaints from both sides.
Yeah, look, in normal times, I'd be happy to go back and forth, but with so much negativity that's in the world right now, I don't want to have a negative conversation about a third-party investor that doesn't control Compass in any way. I don't think it's the right time.
Okay, that's your choice. I'll accept it. Let's wrap it up, Robert, with you shared with me, and you shared, I think, in an email to your employees in different places. You went to great schools. You were raised by a great family. You speak so fondly of your mother. You worked in the White House. You worked at McKinsey with Ryan Snyder. I mean, everything about your story is just amazing. Yet, because you're a black man, you have experienced things that I haven't. Share a couple of those stories just so we can, again, reinforce with people what, you know, some people have to go through here, that it's underneath, I think, some of the anguish and anger that we see across the country right now.
Yeah, look, when I was, I'm from Berkeley, California, and moving to New York, I experienced a lot of things, right? I experienced, police, stopping me in the middle of the street, and not my white friends. I experienced, taxis over 100 times, just passing me by, right? And I was the only black person in many of the places that I worked, and so you don't feel like you belong. And I could go on and on about other aspects, things that I had to deal with. But I do think that I have been lucky. I had benefited from at least 20 sponsors, not mentors, sponsors, people that use their social and political capital to help me succeed. From the time that I was a teenager all the way to the present. My first investor, he is African American. He put it at Compass. He invested $500,000 into Compass, right? And I just go down through so many people, white and black, by the way, that if any one of them were not there, I wouldn't be where I am. And so, I care a lot about giving back to others so that they can benefit, so they can realize their dreams. And the things that I focus more on doing, and I don't talk about the things I do as much, but I started a nonprofit called America Needs You, which has helped thousands upon thousands of students who are first in their family to go to college. Then it became America Needs You. It's in 4 states. They're all below the poverty line, 80% black and brown, giving them career development, college support, 2 summer internships. 2 years later, I then founded a charter school in the Bronx, and I ran 50 marathons, winning state to raise $1 million to help people realize their dreams. So I focus a lot on education. I think that's one of the best ways to help people over the long run. I think the challenge of our political system is people get elected every 2, 4, and 6 years, while education takes 30 years to have the impact. And so it's hard for politicians to be motivated to solve that problem. The second thing that I highly, again, would advocate for people that are watching, I have never heard as many people outside of the black community ask what they can do to help. I just haven't seen that before. And I'm sure that happened in the civil rights movement, but in my lifetime, I haven't seen that. And so, again, I'd encourage you to advocate, volunteer and vote. And really, if there's someone that you see, be a sponsor, not just a mentor. Give them advice, that's good, but be a sponsor. See how can you help them in your career. The specific thing that we're pushing through in Compass is we're going to create a vendor list of people that are black and brown, and whether it's photographers, whether it's people that create floor plans. You as an agent community, you control spend. You can do a lot. Even if it's just a certain percentage of what you spend your money on, that you give, to people from the black community, it will make a huge difference. And so I think there's so many things to do, and I would just encourage us all to think, what can we possibly do to make things better? And again, I'm hopeful. I think over the history of our country, the line has been towards a better world, and I think over at least 2-decade period, you can see that, and it's going to continue.
Robert, I was going to ask you the final question. What can the Inman community do? And I think you just nailed it. I'm going to summarize it. I love that active verb, advocate. Advocate is forward action, opinions, expressions, doing something. I love the sponsor. I always hated the word mentor. Sponsor someone. And I think to summarize your last point is use your pocketbook. Use your influence. Use it in a way that achieves these goals that I think we all need to achieve. Robert, thank you so much. I really appreciate what you've done. You're a welcome voice in the industry. You're always there. You're always present. You've always supported the Inman community. And keep up the good work, and congrats on your success.
Thank you.
Okay, gang, this is Brad Inman checking out. I think we got Katie up again.
Together, they form the gold standard in brokerage tech and the only true lead-to-close experience in North America.
Side was one of the few companies that not only was supporting agents, but was supporting the top agents in the business.
It's exclusive, it's limited, it's really designed to target growth. The only reason you limit it is because you want to take a couple of the top people and grow them.
That's really important to us.
A lot of real estate companies don't treat their top agents as an entrepreneur, and Side really does.
We've had a dominant position in this market, and we are not about maintaining it, we're about growing it.
With Cloud CMA, our goal is to make you look awesome. Awesome at the kitchen table, awesome from your iPad, awesome in the living room, awesome from anywhere.
Great big thanks to Robert and Brad for that previous session. A lot of insight there, and I'm proud to work for a man who speaks up like that. Moving on now, I want to chat a little bit about customer service. I know we talk about it all the time, but now more than ever is it important for you to really shine. Like Pete Flint said this morning, those who will thrive through this and be successful are those who just increase the level of service that they can deliver. So speaking of that, high-touch service in a low-touch world, because we're definitely in a low-touch world right now, I'm going to throw it over to the wonderful Clelia and Will Gaidara, a hospitality guru. I've heard great things. I'm super excited. Got my pen for notes. Take it away, guys.
Morning, everyone. This is Clelia Peters. I'm so excited to be joining you this morning. I'm joined here by Will Gadara, who I'm going to ask to introduce himself, but who I would say is a guru in the world of hospitality and really thinking about what hospitality means most broadly. Will, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed being together with this group in New York City. I was about to say a month ago, but actually I'm realizing it was a lot longer than that ago. I think I'm empathizing with the world and struggling to understand the passage of time these days, which is probably a good thing and a bad thing, depending on how you think of it. My name's Will. I'm a New York City.
For context and say you spoke at CEO Connect. So many of our audience members have not seen you before, but you were one of the hits of CEO Connect in January. So we felt like we had to have you back.
No, it was, I really enjoyed being a part of it. I mean that. And it was not the normal kind of event that I'm used to speaking at, but I felt so connected to the sense of hospitality that I felt in the room. And it was inspiring to me to see that hospitality can be found in every industry so long as you surround yourself with the right people. Yeah. I didn't actually introduce myself. I'm Will. I'm a New York City-based restaurateur. Most people know me for 11 Madison Park. I also opened a bunch of hotels called the Nomad. And I have a conference called the Welcome Conference, which is a hospitality-focused conference that takes place every year at Lincoln Center. So I'm happy to be here.
So happy to have you. Yeah. So we were just talking, and I thought we'd maybe bring the group into a discussion about first the hospitality industry and what's happening in the hospitality industry. And as I was saying to you, I think this is not a distant conversation for the real estate industry, because I think that restaurants are generally like the lifeblood of neighborhoods. And what's happening to restaurants today has meaningful impact for us in the residential real estate world. So maybe you can, I know you've been very involved in advocating on behalf of the industry. You were at the White House a few weeks ago. Can you talk to us about what's happening, what you think is going to happen, and what we can do to be an ally?
Yeah, no, certainly. Thank you. Listen, restaurants are in a really difficult place right now. There's no industry, well, I shouldn't say no industry. Many, many, many industries have been extraordinarily impacted by this in devastating ways. But I think that the hospitality business, specifically the independent restaurants, and when I say that, I mean everything from your local fine dining place to the corner pub to the pizza place, all of it, are especially vulnerable. And we're vulnerable for a number of reasons. I mean, restaurants rely completely on social gathering. The takeout and delivery that people are doing right now is not doing anything to make up for the business that we've all lost. And independent restaurants especially, they really lack access to capital. It's hard to get a loan for a small restaurant. And right now, getting an investor to come in and invest is almost impossible. And so they're in a precarious place. One of the reasons I was down at the White House was to talk about fixes to PPP, which I think everyone's at this point familiar with the PPP program, which has been really good for some small businesses, not good for restaurants. And the other thing I was there to do is to talk about additional relief that is required to help us reopen. The thing about restaurants that's different from so many other industries is when we closed, everything that we had that we would have been serving the next day, we had to donate.
Yeah.
And so the day restaurants reopen, not only do they have to pay for all the food that they donated months ago, but then they need to pay to refill the entire restaurant. Not to mention the fact that we've been paying rent the entire time we're closed. And so what we were there to talk about with the president, and what we've been screaming from the mountaintops with members of Congress and the House and the Senate, is, okay, the PPP, it needs to be fixed such that we have a reasonable chance of reopening, but there needs to be a specific restaurant relief given beyond that so we can stay open. We've been using the metaphor of a bridge. The PPP is the first half of that bridge, but in the absence of more relief, it's only a half a bridge. And I think we can all see very clearly that a half a bridge is worthless.
Yeah.
What we're looking at as an industry is, whether it's due to occupancy restrictions or people's discomfort with gathering in a small restaurant, revenue is going to be down for a long time. And with the margins of a restaurant, if you are suffering a 10%, 20%, 30% revenue decrease, absent real relief, a lot of the restaurants that make up the cultural fabric of the cities and the towns across America will go away forever. So to your point, how can people support? Through my work with the Independent Restaurant Coalition, which is why I was down in DC. We've worked with Congressman Blumenauer out of Portland to propose a restaurant stabilization fund. And we're working on a companion bill in the Senate right now. But anyone who believes, as I do, that restaurants are an extraordinarily vital part of either the cultural ecosystem of every town across America or the economic ecosystem of every town across America, find the biggest organization you're a part of and get them to reach out to representatives in your area and talk about how much we need that relief.
Yeah. As I said, I think it's an important thing for those of us in residential real estate to remember, because, or not just remember, but to take action on, since I really do believe that hospitality is, the vibrancy of the hospitality industry is often linked to the success of real estate assets.
Yeah, we want to get back open and serving people.
As someone who has been cooking 3 meals a day for my family, I also want you to get back open and serving people.
I mean, listen, every one of us that went into the restaurant business, we didn't do it because we thought we'd make gajillions of dollars or anything like that. We did that because we love the work.
Yeah.
We love the feeling we get every single day when we open our doors and create a little world for people to walk into. And I said at the CEO Connect event that we have an opportunity in restaurants to create magical worlds in a world that needs more magic. And our world has never in my lifetime needed more magic than right now.
It's so true. So I would just say, I think this is a great reminder for us in the real estate industry that we can really stand kind of in solidarity with you in the hospitality industry and think about what we can do and how we can help influence legislation that will support the industry, which I think ultimately is economically in the best interest of our industry as well.
And the thing I would say just before I move on that point is a lot of people question whether it's as an individual or as an organization, what does it really mean if I call to voice support for a bill that's being considered? But raindrops make oceans.
Yeah.
And if everyone recognizes that the smallest act can lead to the biggest difference, it's nothing short of extraordinary what we can accomplish together.
Yeah, beautifully put. So, to move from the sublime to the ridiculous, or from the ridiculous to the sublime, I want to go back to that conversation that we had at CEO Connect where we were talking about hospitality. And I'd love for you to introduce to our broader audience the way you think about hospitality. And then maybe let's talk a little bit about what the role is for hospitality in a world where we've been distant from each other for the past few months.
I mean, I believe in the nobility of service. I do. And I think it's so important to say that out loud and to name it for yourself and believe it with every ounce of your being, because there is no line of work that's consistently easy. If the last few months have taught us anything, it's that life can be extraordinarily difficult sometimes. And if you don't believe, like truly in your heart, that the work you're doing matters, that you can in some small way make meaningful impact on someone else's life through what you do on a daily basis, on the really hard days, I'll tell you what, it's really hard to get out of bed.
Yeah.
But if you do believe that there's meaning, whether it's in my role, in my world, in helping create a world where people can come to celebrate, can come to invest in relationship, can give themselves the grace to forget challenging moments, or in your collective world where, I mean, I'll tell you what, the extent to which you feel comfortable in your home has never felt more important than it has over the past couple months. And you all get to help people find their home.
Yeah.
I say all the time in my restaurants with my teams, like, I want to make this restaurant feel as if people are coming home. You are all actually the ones playing matchmaker between people and their lives with their home, which happens to be where they spend those lives.
Yeah, it is a privilege that I think sometimes we forget in the drama of getting a transaction done.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I think, by the way, it's easy to forget that in the drama of restaurants, whether you're trying to refill a 4-top at 8 o'clock that canceled at the last minute, or whether the food's behind, or any myriad of little details that at the end of the day are not anywhere near as significant as the underlying reason for doing what you do. And I think it's one of the most beautiful parts about this time in quarantine. A lot of people have had so much time alone that they've had the ability to reflect on things in a more deep and sincere way than they have in a really, really long time. One of the things I've talked about is that this has been, for me and some of the people I love in my life, a season marked by a rebirth of appreciation.
Yes.
For the things that we love, for the people that we love, recognizing we've all lost a lot, but for the things that we still have left. And hopefully, a rebirth of appreciation for why what we get to do is such an important and meaningful thing to do.
Yeah. I think that is a beautiful lens to put on what for many people has been a challenging, though also I think, a period that's had its own gifts.
Yeah.
Well, I'm aware that we haven't really talked about the meat of, how you define hospitality or service. And I think you put such beautiful language around this. Can you just talk a little bit about that so people have a context as we talk about how it's relevant today?
I mean, how I define hospitality and service. Yes, we have a couple hours. No,
Yeah.
I think, listen, you need to derive significant and genuine pleasure out of serving other people. There's 4 words I've always used in my company. One is hospitality, and that is like when you see someone drop a scarf on the street in front of you in New York City in the winter, that you run up and pick up that scarf and give it back to them, not for financial gain or not even for some sort of karmic bump, because the act of bestowing graciousness on another human being, it makes your day a better day. I talk a lot about how around the holidays, there's people that like to give gifts and those that like to receive gifts. I want to surround myself with those who like to give gifts. But to be super clear, they're just as selfish as one another, because the gift giver, the gift for them is the look on someone's face than when they receive that gift. And so I think it's just like recognizing that, man, like if I'm getting super soapboxy, I believe that we can make the world a better place just by being really, really nice to everyone that comes in the doors of our restaurants. And I think the same is true of anyone that does anything. I believe that there was a law passed that everyone had to be really nice to everyone that works at the DMV, that the DMV would suddenly be the most hospitable place on earth. No, but I believe that service and hospitality are, it can be as simple as the golden rule. Just treating other people in the way that you want to be treated. And caring so much about making other people happy that you'll be unreasonable in your pursuit of that.
Yeah. And I think that, we talked a little bit before this call or this session began about the opportunities today for us to still pursue those goals, maybe almost in a way that's a little bit more unfettered than it was in the past. You shared some optimistic views about what could be possible.
Yeah. Well, okay, I'll say a few things. One, okay, I have a bunch of friends who are in the tech industry. And one of the things we've always identified as being different between tech and restaurants is that when they're developing a new app, they'll build it to like 10% and they'll release it into the world. And it's all buggy and imperfect, but people love it and they mess around with it and they play with it. And then the developer learns from it and then ultimately grows it to 100%. In restaurants, we've always had to build our entire restaurant, full budget and all, before we ever get a sense of whether people are going to react to it. There's an expectation of perfection. And how much of that expectation has been thrust upon us and how much of it do we put upon ourselves is unclear. But I found that the world right now, in all of its challenges and all of the sadness and all of the loss, one of the silver linings is that we are being given grace like we've never been given before to try new things, to be playful and fun and creative. And I'll tell you, on the other side of this, my focus will be less on perfection and more on being thoughtfully human. I think the world craves playfulness, and it craves people doing things just because they believe those things are awesome. And you can pivot and try something new, and if it doesn't work, you can pivot again, so long as you're doing it for the right reason. And I'll tell you what, that inspires me and fills me with so much joy and excitement, because joy and excitement is the thing that the world needs more of right now than anything.
So as you think about being thoughtfully human, as you beautifully put it, what is it that what could that look like for you What do you think that could look like for other people? How can we kind of riff on that idea to create some space for people who are watching this?
I mean, I'll tell you the story of a restaurant in Seattle. The restaurant's called Canlis. It's one of the nicest fine dining restaurants in the Northwest. And they were one of the first restaurants to close their dining room at the beginning of the pandemic. And what they did is, instead of serving people in their fine dining room, they started a bagel shed in their parking lot and a burger joint in their parking lot. A couple weeks later, those things had gotten so busy and so popular that it no longer felt safe. So they stopped that and they started doing home delivery kits. But then they didn't think that the city felt connected enough to one another. They felt a connection to the restaurant. They were eating the restaurant's food at home. But part of the beauty of a restaurant is being in the energy, surrounded by people you don't know and feeling like you're a part of something bigger than yourself. So they started bingo, virtual bingo, where they put a bingo card in every single person's delivery and invited them all to go online that night and join in the virtual fun. And they had a blast. And for 30 minutes that night, the city felt connected to one another. Now, here's one of the most revered fine dining restaurants in America doing bingo online. That's not normal. And in some ways, or in an old world, it would have been really unadvisable. But what they thought about, and this goes back to hospitality, is it's not about what we do, it's why we're doing it and how we're doing it.
Yeah.
And if you remember what the true purpose, what your true purpose is, what is that thing that gives you a sense of meaning and nobility? And if you find yourself in a position based on the events of the world around you, unable to pursue that purpose in the way you've always pursued it before, that doesn't mean you get to stop.
Yeah.
It just means you need to try something new.
Yeah, I think I love that story, which is a story that I'd heard, but I don't think I had interpreted in this way. I'm curious, putting it to you as you think about, what do you feel like the world needs? Like, what could you imagine doing? And take us through some of your thinking as a model for the way some of the rest of us may think.
I mean, people crave social interaction. They crave emotional connection. We've been trying our best to do that through Zoom. And in some ways, I've been staying connected to people that I love more during this season of my life than before, but it's not the same. People, we're social creatures. And listen, the reality of this is, for restaurants at the very least, on the other side of it, there's a lot of people that are saying it's just not going to be the same. Waiters are going to be wearing masks. You have to take temperatures, all of these things. But I think that if everyone else in the room is looking at things like that as obstacles, we have the collective capacity to look at them as opportunities. I'm excited to take someone's temperature in the most hospitable way imaginable.
Yeah.
I'm excited to show people that if you smile big enough, you can still see someone smile when they're wearing a mask. And I think that's a metaphor about hospitality. There's a lot of things that are going to get in the way of human connection for the foreseeable future. So many things in pursuit of safety that will make it harder to connect in the way that we were once used to connecting. But in the same way that if you smile big enough, you can see someone smile through a mask. It just means that all of the things we're used to doing in an effort to connect with other people, that we do them louder.
Yeah.
That we do them with more tenacity, that we lean all the way in, even if we're not allowed to physically lean all the way in. And that gets me excited.
Yeah. Well, it's such a pleasure to talk to you as always. Thank you so much for joining us, and we're looking forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you so much.
Wasn't that nice? I know that I enjoyed it very much, so thank the two of you. We're going to jump right back in now, no time to waste. The evolving ecosystem of real estate. Let's chat a little bit about that. And I think that we're like really CEO heavy today. We've got some big experts coming to the main stage, virtually, of course. So now I am happy to introduce, of course, Brad and David Doctorow, CEO of Move.
Fantastic. I just love that guy and a great interview. By the way, I want to thank our moderators. I want to thank Katie. What a great MC you've been, Katie. Clelia Peters, you're the best. I love when you do these interviews. You do it with such sincerity and you have intelligence and bright, and all of our moderators. And I just want to once again thank our sponsors. And the reason this isn't an ad. I don't have to do this. It's not a plug because they're paying for it. But they took a chance on this event. And the fact they took a chance enabled us to keep all our team on board and also to charge our customers you only $50. So I'm just going to run through the list really quick because it's an amazing list. NAR, Agent Image, Boomtown, Zillow, Side, Leading RE, Quicken Loans, Property Base, The CE Show, WR Studios, Cloud CMA, Greg Robertson, Concierge Auctions, CoreLogic, DataTree, Front App, iReal Real Estate Pro, Exact Contact, 1000 Watt, I love you guys, Lone Wolf Technology, Lucid Press, Menaril, Offers, Qualia, Rate My Agent, Reminder Media, Rilla, Road to Close, Central Lock, T360, Townify, Transactly, and Utility Concierge. Again, thank you so much for being there and taking a chance on this event. So I'm really excited to have with us David Doctorow. He's someone that's new to our industry. I think we all want to get to know him. He and I chatted about this, and he knows he's playing catch-up, and he was very candid. So welcome, David Doctorow, CEO of Realtor.com. David, are you there?
I am, Brad. Nice to see you.
Greetings. Good to see you. I like the fireplace. Do you have a fire going there?
Yeah, it's about 96 degrees here where I am today, so thanks.
Okay.
But you get the idea. It's a nice warm feel.
Totally. Is that the isolation beard, or did you have that before isolation?
Yeah, no, I had the beard before isolation, although I've got a little bit of a COVID haircut at this point. This is longer than I normally do. So next time around, maybe you'll get what it normally looks like.
Me too. Mine is definitely a function. The long hair is a function of the not being able to go to my barber. Welcome to the world of real estate, David. And I'm going to start with a weird question, only because I have a writer that I always loved. He's left us. Are you related at all to E.L. Doctorow? Is there any relationship there to the famous writer?
E.L. is actually related. He's my grandfather's second cousin, and I'm not a genealogist, but I don't really know what that makes him to me. But we are related.
Yeah. Wow.
So grandfather did a bunch of research. We figured that out a little while ago.
Well, good genes. One of my favorite writers. So how are you doing? Are you doing okay through all of this?
I'm doing great. Of course, this is a sobering time we're living in right now, between the COVID crisis and, of course, the events of the last week. It's a challenging time, but I've really been enjoying my time at Realtor.com so far. I'm about 3-4 months in, and it's been a great start. I'm really excited by what lies ahead. Look forward to talking about it.
And just so we share, I think your bio is online, but this is a case you're new to the industry and people want to know where you came from. You were in Expedia. You were also at, where else were you? Tell me a little bit about you. And also, I saw a theme of marketing through this. It seems like something Realtor.com probably needs right now. So I thought that was good credentials. But give us just a little bio of where you've been.
Yeah, so I come to real estate from eBay previously, and before that, Expedia. So I've been in the marketplace business for the last decade, and I've been struck in my time so far here in real estate at how similar some of the patterns of marketplaces are. Fundamentally, marketplaces are really about connecting buyers and sellers to do things, and to enable the intermediaries who are involved in those markets to help. And the more that in marketplaces you keep it that simple and that clear, I've found the better. And there's infinite complexity to solving problems, but in the end, consumers really just care about, are you helping them get the job done that they're trying to accomplish?
That raises one question, David, a marketplace. That was buying and selling. Your competitor is Zillow, and you guys have started over the years, long before you, to trail. And maybe there's different metrics I don't know about, but clearly they seem to be the winner here. And they've gotten into the transaction, so they're more like eBay and more like Expedia, where Realtor.com has kind of insisted to stay in the traditional role as an advertising marketplace. We noticed right away you made some management changes, brought in some technology people, and one of your acquisitions, Ben, who I think the world of. Is there a possibility that you'll turn this more into a marketplace like places you've been in the past, or are you going to stick to the News Corp model of being an advertising platform?
Yeah, well, there's certainly a lot in that. I think you declared Zillow the winner. We think the game's not over. We're certainly a challenger in this race. We have a lot that we can build upon. We're really proud of the history of being an advertising-oriented business, and that will continue to be a significant part of our future. But at the same time, we think that broadening the aperture of the problem of helping consumers trying to search and discover homes to, in the end, helping consumers think about making great homes and, when needed, sell homes is something that we can contribute to. And we seek to do that in partnership, in deep partnership with the entire industry. And that's because we think that in the end, if we do that, we can present more choice to consumers, which is of real value to them. And in the end, we'll be able to collectively innovate faster than those companies that have a more closed approach that's oriented towards their own proprietary products.
You know, and there's a lot of great examples in history where an underdog sneaks up on the, as you said, the proclaimed winner. And I don't know if I have the right to proclaim Zillow the winner, but is that how you see yourself, though, an underdog here, and wearing all the clothing of an underdog, which is can be very powerful to motivate the troops?
Yeah, look, I think the focus we have is just to continue to improve, and there's a lot that we can build upon. You know, we've got traffic and leads that are growing faster than the competition in most months. We've got a terrific brand. We've got great data, but we do think that by dialing up our focus on the consumer experience and trying to provide rich information that help consumers accomplish what it is in deep partnership with their realtors, this is something we can do a lot more of. We also are really proud of the referral model that we've developed. Of course, we acquired the OpCity business a year and a half ago. This, we think, quietly has become a real competitive advantage, and we'll seek to invest more in it to create more distance between us and the competition. And we'll continue to innovate in our leads and marketing-oriented products. There's a lot more that we can do to help realtors accomplish what they need to have happen when they prefer to interact with us that way.
Yeah, I got a lot of questions about this ahead of time. You probably saw it on Facebook, Dave. We should address a couple, but one was, it sounds like that's going to be your focus, and OpCity's a great example, and those guys, you know, mastered that, where you're going to double down on lead quality, lead conversion. Is it lead volume? What of the lead words, which one are you focused on, and how can your customers, like, where's the identity of the realtor in there? How do they stand out? You know, how do they get associated with the lead? What are you doing for them, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah. Well, I do want to reinforce the connection first between how we see it in the consumer and the realtor. The more we do to bring more consumers to our site, and the more that we can understand about those consumers' intent, the better we think we can package up that consumer and enable realtors to serve them well. So that'll be a real focus, getting that rich intelligence and bringing more of them. We will also then, as you rightly point out, we will leverage the referral model as one of the ways that will connect realtors to those consumers. And we're certainly seeing great growth there, and we'll expect to continue to do so. It's a model that provides an excellent consumer experience and ultimately we think can be the basis for providing much more to the consumer in partnership with the realtor. But in the end, we know that while we've been in the advertising and leads business for a long time, we won't rest on our laurels. There's ways that we'll need to innovate, and we're beginning to do that with some testing already in the last couple months, that we think will provide us a clear path to the next generation of leads-oriented products. And this is going to be, in the end, the way that we serve realtors in the wide array of approaches that they might want to have.
And how do you look? You inherited a relationship with the largest and most powerful trade association, I think, in the world, the National Association of Realtors. We hear gossip, our reporters get tips. We hear it's a good relationship, we hear it's a bad relationship. We hear they're going to break it, you're going to change it. How do you view that? I mean, it must be a good thing, but it also must be a heavy weight at times to do everything you may want to do.
Just to make sure everybody does know, we have a privileged relationship with the National Association of Realtors since the beginning of this business. And my coming in, I feel that's a gift for us. It's an asset that we have probably underutilized, if I'm honest. We see an opportunity to continue and to deepen that partnership. We're certainly in discussions about the specifics of how that may unfold. But fundamentally, it emanates from the fact that we're both trying to serve the same customers. The NAR members in the end are realtors we hope to serve. And we're trying to find the right ways to reach those people and to innovate with those people. And ultimately, I think our objectives are aligned there. So there's an opportunity for us both.
Let us all in the audience close our eyes and imagine, and you tell me, what will Realtor.com look like in a year? What could I imagine it looking like and becoming? Which I guess it's what you probably, when you were hired here, David, what's your vision for Realtor.com? So what is your vision for Realtor.com? What are we going to see in a year or 5 years or whatever you want to tell me?
Look, in this era, I first have to just say, let's be honest, anybody that knows how to prognosticate where we're going to be in our society in a year right now, I think is going out on a limb. So we're all going to learn a lot in the next year about what actually transpires. But of course, we do have a direction and a plan that we seek. You will find Realtor.com continue to really focus on bringing more consumers to our site in new ways, and to create a consumer experience that really stands out. We're focused on innovating to provide consumers with new experiences. A couple examples. One, we recently launched 3 automated valuation models that we think provide consumers with an array of information that in the end will help them decide more quickly and more readily whether to list their home and contact a realtor to do so. We also launched a partnership with EasyKnock to provide access to creative financing models in this time when consumers frankly need it, given the liquidity situation that we're in. So we'll continue to push the consumer experience and bringing consumers to our site a whole lot. You will also find us lean into the industry much more than I think we have in the last while. It's always been part of our DNA. But I believe if we take on partnership in earnest, really in discussion with realtors, with brokers, with MLSs, there's a lot more that we can accomplish when we team up. I believe that we'll innovate faster, and that's, frankly, as I said earlier, it produces more choice for consumers and more business for all of us, and I think that'll be great in the end.
Yeah, I've been saying, David, that I think consumers now more than ever, because there's uncertainty, and there's uncertainty in the marketplace about what my house is worth, what that house is worth, and baking that into search. I'd love to see an overlay when I'm looking at homes that just told me exactly what's going on in that zip code. I always say that's the true value of a realtor, because no one else really offers it. The true value of the realtor is the one that has that, that zip code 96801 tattooed to their forehead or their ass. And until those tech tools are available, and they're really never going to be available at the nuanced level that a realtor knows. But if we could just start adding that in search in a more integrated, thoughtful way instead of a button over here, I think it would be ideal. I'm also interested about EasyKnock. So is that partnership been announced? Are you doing that soon, or can people? Because again, I think liquidity is an issue. Getting in and out of homes is difficult. Is that something that's in place now on Realtor.com?
Yeah, it's actually in place now on our site. We haven't been overly vocal about it. I think our priority was really just on getting that capability and that partnership live so that consumers could begin to tap into it and access the financing options that they need during this time. In the end, we're certainly about trying to create access for consumers to the things that they need, ultimately creating choice. And you'll see us continue to lean into that over this next period of time.
That is great. Well, I want to welcome you to the Inman community, and we're here to, it sounds like you're kind of doing a startup, so we'll think of you in that group, which we have a deep-seated, heartfelt support for, the startup. And if you need anything from the Inman community, you can be assured they'll be there to help. I notice you're already engaged on Facebook Coast to Coast, and that's excellent. Some CEOs avoid that like the plague, but the fact you're there, you'll get a lot. I throw stuff up all the time, and they give us really great feedback. So I really want to thank you for being here today, and we're here to help. And good luck. If you're maybe in a year, you'll be the winner.
It's a long race. It's a long race, Brad. We're going to have fun with it, and look forward to working with you all. Really excited to be here.
Fantastic. Gang, before I hand it back to Katie, I wanted to thank the people of the Inman community who constantly give us counsel and advice. I mentioned Facebook Coast to Coast, and if I put the word help up there, I not only get all kinds of help and ideas and opinions, but we also get criticisms, and we get, there's a lot of assaults. There's, Jay Tom says, there's the haters, and there's all of that. But I welcome it all. We're a First Amendment organization, and we love feedback. And during this last week, we got a lot of feedback, and it inspired us in so many ways. And I think we scratched the surface of all the things that Inman can do. But I also, in that vein, wanted to mention, I'll be back tomorrow at noon Pacific time, and I want to urge all of you to be there, because it's going to be an opportunity to do what we call the town hall, and it won't be us talking to you. It'll be you talking to us, and it's open territory. You can talk about the tech glitches we had with production. You can talk about whether you think virtual has a life. You can ask us about when is our next physical event. You can, give us hell about our reporting coverage. You can tell us what we should be doing differently, or you can tell us we're great if you'd like. But please join me tomorrow at 12. That's when I'll be back, and I can't wait to field your comments and questions, or better yet, not field them, listen. I'm really looking forward to listening, not blabbing tomorrow when I'm with you. Thank you all. You'll have a great day. Participate in everything going on this afternoon. And I'll hand it back to my fave, Katie.
Thank you, Brad. I also want to say that typically during the town halls, when we are all in person, sometimes we miss a lot of people because they're flying out and that's when the flight was, or they just have to get back on the road. So I think it's very, very interesting, and it's going to be pretty cool that we have a virtual town hall so we can have a ton of participation. So as a sales manager, I have been dealing with, I think, nothing but market stats and the economy, and I am no economist. So I'm very excited for our next panel. We're going going to talk about a housing outlook. What does it look in 30, 60, 90 days from two experts in the field? We have Matthew Gardner, Chief Economist at Windermere, and Skylar Olson, Director of Economic Research for Zillow.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you're all doing very well, and welcome to a brief discussion, hopefully brief, on what's going on in the economy, specifically as it pertains to real estate. So, hi, Skylar. How are you, my dear friend?
Hey, I'm doing great. You know, there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things to look at and talk about. In many ways, I'm sure, Matthew, you also feel like this is the Economist Super Bowl right now. What do you think?
I think you're absolutely right. I think there's so much misinformation out there and so much uncertainty out there that I'm hopeful that in our little chat today, we can create some clarity. So with that, I'm actually going to let you go first. So I'm going to disappear. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. I'll join you back in a little bit.
Awesome. I'll see you soon. Because really at Zillow, we are all things data, right? Data want to be free. And we have the great advantage and privilege really in this environment of sending a lot of engineers at trying to figure out what's happening in the housing market by pulling daily metrics. So this has been intense. This has been incredible. The job loss has been significant. 37 million unemployment claims filed. This is big. This is huge. The graph that you're seeing in front of you here is a similar drop off in terms of, housing activity and economic activity in housing itself. So, for example, if you look at the pending sales numbers, see that time series at the beginning starts in just mid-February. You're looking at falling off of a cliff significantly to the point where even now, after a steady increase and a steady recovery, knock on wood, hopefully you've already seen bottom here. That's going to happen a few times in our conversation that we'll be knocking on wood. But you can see that pending sales is still almost 12% below those 2019 levels, steadily coming back though, and importantly, coming back a little bit faster than seller activity. So buyers are coming forth, harvesting available inventory, maybe taking advantage of virtual tools or getting it done in any way they can, but sellers are still hesitating in a big way. New listings from existing homeowners putting homes on the market for sale fell almost negative 44% relative to the same time in 2019. That steadily increased as well, not as significantly as pending sales, and it still remains a good negative 28% below 2019 levels. That's going to make it hard for buyers as we continue through the recovery, in the sense because the fast buyers, those that were brave, those that embrace those virtual tools, came to the market. They're harvesting inventory so that now overall inventory is still 20% below 2019 levels. It's a huge pullback in economic and housing activity, but we're watching the recovery happen as we speak. And one of the reasons why the recovery might be faster than we would have thought, or why housing is more resilient in this experience, is because we went through something incredibly traumatic just a couple of a decade ago, right? That housing bubble and bust, this experience is nothing like that. Then we had 4.5 excess homeowners and people who got too much credit, who couldn't sustain job loss, and those foreclosures came tumbling down. Economic support at this time is incredibly significant in terms of unemployment benefits, in terms of small business loans. Hopefully all of that, knock on wood again, will keep us from having significant foreclosures that would cause the house prices to fall significantly like they did last time. Now, again, no excess inventory, no excess homeowners, tight credit leading into this crisis, good home buying activity, stellar sales numbers as late as February, all mean that housing is going to be more resilient through this crisis. And it's not just the housing market doing well before, it's also this fundamental demand that's not gone. The record expansion is gone, but there's still, in this, look at this age distribution in the US, here we see the different generational booms, right? Boomers and millennials. The millennial peak is those guys in orange. There's 3.1 million more of them still. They're going to delay those major life events in this crisis. They're going to delay getting married. They're going to delay having kids. It's going to push the median age of the first-time home buyer out further, but there's still a substantial share in that generation pushing forward, who didn't get job loss, who have high incomes, and hopefully metros that will bounce back very quickly because they have the ability to work remotely. They're in industries that have tended to bounce back fast. So what does that mean? Put it all together, look over the long run. Prices won't fall as significantly as you might expect. This is not like the global financial crisis. This is not like the housing bubble and bust. We expect home prices to fall anywhere from 2 to 3%. Now, we already talked about how housing activity pulled back significantly. Our forecast has actually been revised from what you see here in terms of sales volume dropping. We originally forecast it would drop anywhere from 50 to 60% from those high February numbers. Now our nowcast is a little bit closer to anywhere from 40 to 50%. But we're already starting to see that steady and slow recovery in terms of activity. And why are maybe they able to recover is embracing the virtual tools to get it done. We've seen the creation of 3D home tours skyrocket 600% over the past few days. It's incredible resilience in the housing market and its economic agents, both particularly buyers, but sellers as well, embracing the tools to make it work. Now I'll welcome Matthew back to give us his insight. Now there's a lot to talk about. I know I spoke very quickly, but Matthew, why don't you take it away?
Well, thanks, Skylar. That was certainly, I've heard you speak and spoken with you on stage several times. I think that's the fastest I've ever heard you speak. And that's pretty impressive coming from an Englishman like myself. So here's my take on, in essence, the same subject. But I'm actually going to look at it in a slightly different manner. One, it's less granular. Obviously, as we know, Skylar likes to talk on a day-over-day basis. I'm looking at, in essence, what's going to go on quarterly, which is going to be rounded up to a seasonally adjusted annual rate. So my first slide, this second quarter, as you can clearly see, is really quite remarkably ugly, and it really is. However, that said, I am expecting to see some significant improvement in the second half of the year. And I honestly believe it's going to be a story or a tale of two halves of the year. So from perspective, the last time we were down at this, 4.3 million roughly annualized rate of transactions was back in the summer of 2011, which is really pretty remarkable. A long time ago. That said, sales in April were better than I had expected, although month over month, single-family sales were down about 9%. Multifamily, however, down significantly more, around 20%. I do expect, however, as I mentioned a few seconds ago, we are going to see some improvement in the second half of the year. And there's several reasons for this. One of which is there still belief in housing? We know that Skylar said that we are very much not in a situation that we were in back in 2008. It's a very different place in time. But at the same time, we're also seeing the fact that, as Skylar mentioned, there are going to be some first-time buyers, some younger households who will delay. Therefore, what do I expect to see in terms of overall sales? Year over year, we're going to be down. And year over year, I think that we're going to be down somewhere around 11%. Again, total sales 2020 versus 2019. However, I expect 2021 to be quite a banner year, and sales will be up by about 13%. However, it's still going to take us into a point in that's not that much further advanced from that we saw before COVID-19 hit. In terms of home prices, again, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I do expect we are going to see a pop in the second quarter. Again, you can wonder, well, hang on a second, we are still going through the novel coronavirus. What are the impacts there? We just haven't seen it in terms of pricing. Less choice, absolutely. Fewer listings. However, also fewer buyers. Prices were up March to April by about 2.2%, and year over year up by actually amazing 7.5%. So although I do expect to see prices tail off in terms of median sales price in the third and fourth quarters, which actually is remarkably normal, year over year, I still expect to see, all things being equal, home prices up by about 1.7%. And we should see a little bit more than that next year, probably coming in at around 2.5%. But there are certainly significant presumptions there. The biggest one is, are we going to come out with a vaccine? Are we going to come out with a cure for COVID-19? If not, then that might look a little different. But am I expecting to see any form of price contraction? Quite frankly, I'm really not expecting to see that. And in fact, if I have a worry at all, it's still over affordability. When you look at the matrix of incomes to mortgage rates, and I'll get to mortgage rates in a second, Most markets of the country, we are really not that bad shape. However, all my friends down in California, that is certainly where we are still seeing an issue. So why do I think we will see sales pick up and sales price growth rise? Well, then we start looking at mortgages. This, quite frankly, is insane. This looks at the average 30-year conventional fixed rate mortgage over time. We're going to be hanging around the doldrums of between 3 and 3.2% through the end of 2021. And if you think that that is an aggressive forecast, I'm not the worst. Fannie Mae put out a paper a couple of weeks ago. They're putting 30-year fixed rates down at 2.9% in actually the spring, late spring of next year. Well, what's going on, as you are all aware, mortgage rates, certainly 30-year fixed, they track the yield on 10-year treasuries. That spread between the two has been roughly about 1.7% over time, going back to the 70s. Right now, it's actually a full percentage point higher, 2.7%. So what does that tell me? Well, that implies the fact we could see where we are today, we could see mortgage rates drop down. And in essence, rates should be closer to 2.5% than to north of 3%. I can't get my head around sub 3% mortgages. However, they are not going to go up, they will drop. And because of that, I expect to see that we will see continued demand and home price growth. Finally, very quickly, no need to panic. A couple of charts, and I'll run through them very briefly. Mortgage and forbearance, major topic, have slowed down, as you can see, significantly. However, it does mean we're not going to see a big push in terms of foreclosure activity. Forbearance requests, a lot of activity, that has tailed off as well. I look at the mortgage purchase index produced by the Mortgage Bankers Association. It's up. It has been up for the last 4 weeks. Again, that defines there is demand out there. And finally, I know that Scott did start out with massive job losses, but if you look at home ownership rates by income, this is hitting the apartment market far, far harder than it is the ownership market. Do I expect prices to go down? No. Do I expect demand? Demand's going to be interesting because of the supply issues that are going to be pervasive. But we're not in 2008. This is a health crisis, not a housing crisis. All right. So with that, Scarlett, come on back. All right. So in terms, what is interesting, what I'm hearing a lot, really across the country, and certainly in the Western US, the bottom feeders are out there. They seem to think we're back in 2008 again. You can pick up a house for the same price as a 6-pack of beer. I'm just not seeing it in any way, shape, or form. No. They are out there. I expect them to be. However, I think they are going to be sadly disappointed when it comes to the fact of not just the choice, but the price point of homes. Yes, you could temporarily see a drop. But what do you think?
Well, so we see in general not a lot of signal that prices are falling. So we can watch those list prices and some of the median sale prices for the ones that close at this very low transaction volume. And we do see, in a lot of cases, nationally they're flat, right? They're not declining. But in some places, even when median list price or recent median sale prices are going down, generally we can also look at the composition change of the inventory. High-end homeowners pull back more than lower-end homeowners. There's more of an optionality up here, right? You can decide to sell when it's a good time. Doesn't look like a good time, like maybe now it's a little bit wild, right? You pull back and we're seeing those median list price fall as these homes stay on the market more often. Everyone pulled back, but more so on the top. So not a good signal at all that there are significant deals on the market.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Because again, if you look at new listings, we've seen that pull back dramatically. Therefore, you have got the houses that are on the market. You can question, is their valuation appropriate? And also you look at average list price. Yes, absolutely, that has flattened. And at some point, that will relate through to a slowing down in sales price appreciation. Has to. Just the numbers make that work. So, but again, fire sales, no. I mean, remember, 1 in 4 homes with a mortgage in America have got more than 50% equity. We are sat literally on, $8.7 trillion of equity right now. No one's going underwater. So any people that go out there looking at houses who are looking for short sales, well, good luck with that. Right. You're just not going to find it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and that's a saving grace for, any home sellers that find themselves having to sell, maybe if you didn't intend to for your own job loss or, whatever can happen. to any of these households in situations like these. It's comforting to know that home prices are not, plummeting. And it's comforting for existing homeowners to know that there's probably not a foreclosure crisis coming because of all the support and the forbearance and the refinance and the low interest rates. There's a huge housing finance apparatus around the homeowner, which makes us believe, I think both you and I, Matthew, we've talked about this before, that housing, for sale housing, is much more resilient. We're much more worried about the rental market.
Yeah, remarkably so. And I also see increased demand. Just the fact is, look at housing as a hedge against inflation. Look at housing as a hedge against the fact we could see future bugs make their appearance. Our stock portfolio might have dropped by 20, 35%. Did home prices drop by that at all? No, they didn't. So the stability of housing, I think, can attract a lot more people, or potentially some more people, than it would do normally, just given its resiliency and its stability. And that's very much where we are today.
Yeah, now is not then. We're in a much different space. It's a crazy economic situation that we're in, but housing is coming to it a little bit tougher than it came to a crisis last time.
Oh, very much so. In just the same way that the economy was in good shape January and February, so is housing. We just happened to turn the light off because we had to. When the light goes back on again, things will pick back up again. Of that, I have no doubt.
Yeah, let's close, Matthew, on your tagline that you had at the end of your presentation. This is a health crisis, not a housing crisis. I like that one.
Yeah. Well, what I've been telling certainly all our brokers and anyone who's listening, quite frankly, is this. When you wake up every morning, if you sell real estate, repeat after me. This is a health crisis, not a housing crisis. I think you do that, you're going to be in good shape.
That's a nice one.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. That wraps up the first part of the second day of Connect Now. We will see you back here at 2 p.m. Eastern sharp with CEO of Redfin, Glenn Kelman. Go have a lunch, go have some fun. Be back here soon. Thanks, guys.